So I want to welcome everybody to the call today. I have another exciting call with another amazing and brilliant author. And actually, this author just so happens to be a warrior brother from the Mankind Project. So that makes me even extra more excited since, I'm a warrior brother as well. And I'm going to introduce this brother to you in a second. But before I do that, let me just let you all know a little about who I am and what I do. My name is Mike Brown, and I'm a life coach. And what I do is I help people to turn their heartfelt dream into physical reality. And you can get an ebook and a video e-course on how to do that for yourself by going to my website at www.mikebrowncoaching.com. And also, I'm an author of the book called You Are a Gift to the World, Blessings from My Mom. And you can get a copy of that book. You can get a free chapter of that book, not a copy. You can get a free chapter of that book by going to www.youragift.com. So that's a little about me and what I do. And so now I want to introduce you to the guest and author that I have for you all today. This young man's name is Rick Broniec. He is an educator, a writer, a workshop creator, and facilitator of transformational experiences. Rick taught chemistry in an urban public school for 38 years, and he's recognized as a master teacher through entry in Wisconsin's Educational Hall of Fame. In addition, Rick has worked in the human potential personal growth field for more than 25 years as a workshop leader, trainer, multicultural trainer, and facilitator of transformational weekend experiences. He's a certified full leader and leader trainer in the Mankind Project since 1992, and he's led well over 160 trainings for the Mankind Project. Wow, that's incredible. Rick is also a leader in multicultural work with the Mankind Project and has led over 40 multicultural awareness workshops around the globe. He recently published his first book, and that's primarily what we're going to be talking about today. His book is called A Passionate Life, 7 Steps to Reclaiming Your Passion, Purpose, and Joy. You can also get that on Amazon.com. And he also has a coaching practice that helps people find their passion and joyful purpose in life. And so, with no further ado, I want to welcome Rick Broniec. Welcome, Rick.
Hey, Mike, thanks a lot, brother. It's really great to be on your show. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to have you here. I tell you, when one of the things that just blew me away about your bio there is that you had more than 160 trainings that you led through the Mankind Project. Is that weekends that you had been on, the 160 New Warrior Training Adventures, or that's all trainings, like with the weekends as well? I'm just curious to know.
Well, I'm not the one that keeps track of that, Mike. My community does. And I believe that includes leadership trainings and NWTAs, New Warrior Training Adventures. Let's put it this way. Over 20 years, I've been very, very active in our work.
Wow. Awesome. That's and I mean, I haven't done it that long, but that is a lot of wealth of knowledge I can imagine from all that time. So, thank you for doing that and being a service in that way, brother.
Thanks. It's my joy.
And, Rick, I think I know mission is like a very important thing that you talk about in your book, so I figured I wanted to start out with this question for you by asking you, what's your mission?
Well, thanks, Mike. My mission is to create a passionately loving planet by fostering safe, sacred, diverse, healing circles. My shadow mission is to create a passionately hateful planet of isolation by withholding all that I have to offer and shaming all that you have to offer. And I must say I'm a master at both of those missions, Mike.
Yeah. Now, I know your book, you emphasize missions. You emphasize mission of service strongly in your book. And I imagine, you're talking about missions in general. Why is it that missions are so important? Why is that something that stands out for you? That's an important thing.
Well, good question, Mike. I believe that missions are particularly important for men because they access, in my opinion, the sort of sacred part of ourselves that really wants to give something back to our planet and to mankind. And I believe that when men get in touch with their mission, something is activated in them that is profound and deep. And that is some sense that they have something of great value to give back to the world. I believe every man, every single man has something to give back to the world, no matter who he is, what his training is like, or how he lives his life.
Awesome. That's awesome. And and I'm also just curious, Rick, what prompted you to write this particular book? A Passionate Life: 7 Steps to Reclaiming Your Passion, Purpose, and Joy.
Well, Mike, I discovered in doing men's work and lots of other work that I talk about in my book, 12-step work and meditation, things of that nature, I discovered that early in my life I lost a lot of passion. And I had bumped into an awful lot of people that I call walking dead men or women, including students I'd even had at the high school level, that didn't seem to have passion, didn't seem to care deeply about anything in their lives. And I realized I was missing something important. So my quest for much of my life has been to reclaim that passion, reclaim my purpose, and reclaim my joy. And I decided to write this book because I wanted to share my own path, use my life as a lens to take a look at some of these issues, and I felt like I had something of value to offer to other men and women who are feeling the same as I did, missing something of importance in their lives, a sense of aliveness, a sense of joy, a sense of connection to something that's important, something of value. So that's why I wrote this book. Okay,
I get that. And so, what that leads me to is, well, I guess the two-part question I have for you. I get that passion is important for you, and I want to ask, how do you define passion, and why do you think why is it so important?
Well, in my book, I have a whole chapter entitled Just What is Passion, Mike? And what I'd like to do is share just a piece of one definition because of our limited time here today. And actually comes out of Wikipedia. I really like the Wikipedia definition. And it says that passion indicates a strong feeling about a person or thing. It's an intense emotion, compelling feeling, enthusiasm or desire for something. This term also applies to a lively or eager interest in or admiration for a proposal or cause or activity or person. It's also interesting to note that the term passion comes from the Greek root pasho, which means to burn. I love the interesting connection there, to burn or to suffer, and hence the term the passion of Christ, and also the sense that we may have noticed, some of us that are passionate may have noticed that sometimes it is painful to be passionate about something. But that's how I define passion. I think most people know passion when they see it, when they feel it in themselves and when they see it in others. But that's a definition from Wikipedia. Why is it important? Well, I mentioned earlier that people that don't seem to have access to their passion seem to be sort of sleepwalking through life. You and I have probably met a lot of people like that. I felt like that very much earlier in my life. I had a lot of success. I was doing very, very well, and yet I didn't enjoy it. I had very little joy, very little passion in my life. And why it's important, I think it enlivens people. I think it brings people's leadership to the surface. What they deeply care about is what they put their time and energy into. And I believe that everyone has something to offer. And therefore, helping people discover their passion is something that turns me on. It's part of my mission.
I got that. I get that. I can hear your passion in that.
Yeah, great. I'm glad.
And Rick, what that brings me to is, what is it? What's this thing? I mean, because, it's obvious not everybody's walking around here fully ignited with passion. So I'm just curious to know, what blocks passion in people's lives, from your experience?
Well, in my experience, it usually has to do with messages or wounds that we receive in childhood, Mike. Very few of us are nurtured in an environment, or were nurtured in an environment, where we were allowed to be passionate, to be brilliant, to be alive, to be free, to be creative. Most of the time, we had people in our lives who were trying to corral that energy, trying to control us, trying to tell us that being alive, being creative, feeling like you're a wonderful soul, that you have something beautiful to offer, isn't a good thing. And on top of that, many of us receive pretty deep wounds. I've experienced that with working with thousands and thousands of men and women around the world, from our parents, from schools, from our churches, from abuse, the alcoholism, the physical abuse, the sexual abuse. Those things tend to put us into shells, put us behind masks, and dim our passion, dim our aliveness, and dim our sense of self-confidence and power. So I believe that's how many of us, if not most of us, have lost our passion.
I got it. And, you know, just to make this, like, even more solid in what you're saying, Rick, if you're willing to do this, can you give an example, maybe from your own personal life, of maybe a wound or something that has blocked your passion? Would you be willing to do that? Absolutely.
The one that comes to mind that's most clear for me, Mike, is that my parents separated the first time. They separated 7 times in my life, but the first time when I was 7 years old. I'm the oldest of 6 kids. I have 5 siblings. And when my father left, he put me on his knee, and I remember this scene like it seared into my soul. I'll never forget it, even though I was only 7. He put me on his knee. He told me he was leaving the family. And he said to me, Rick, you're now the man of the family. Take care of your mother. Take care of your brothers and sisters. Now, I have no doubt, Mike, that my dad was absolutely trying to bless me, trying to help me move through this time of transition in some way. I really believe that. But what that message turned out to be to me was a really deep curse. And the reason for that is that I took on that message very deeply in love of my father, in loyalty to my father and my family and my siblings, to literally become an adult, become the man of the family at 7 years old. When I did that unconsciously, I wasn't conscious of it, but looking back on it now, it's very clear. I really lost a big piece of my childhood. I became my mother's caretaker to a very high degree, to a very unhealthy degree. I became my sibling's surrogate father. They didn't ask for that, but that's the role that I took. And both of my parents tended to put me into that very, very often. I became super, super responsible and super focused on achievement, on looking good. All of that came out of, in retrospect, out of that simple message from my father that I was now the man of the family. And it took me a long... Sure.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. From that one moment, from that one instant in time when he put you on his lap and he said this to you, that all pretty much came from that moment, right?
Exactly. Looking back on it now, I realize that I made a conscious choice, perhaps, but it immediately became unconscious to step into this role. And it took me a long, long time to realize that what I was doing was hiding behind a mask of perfection, a mask of accomplishment, a mask of being, quote-unquote, in charge and in control that was not authentic for me at all, and that was pushing people that I loved and cared for away from me instead of drawing them closer.
Wow.
It took me till my late 30s, really, to sort of begin waking up to that. And frankly, that's been my life's work, to reclaim my true self, to be completely authentic, to peel away that mask of perfectionism, to allow myself to be imperfect, to allow myself to make mistakes, and to allow myself to take chances that I wouldn't have taken in the past out of fear of failure. A lot of that came out of that simple message that happened to me when I was 7.
Wow. And, first of all, Rick, I just want to acknowledge you and thanking you for using yourself as an example to demonstrate the work, obviously that you've done in yourself and the work that's contained in your book. And so can you kind of expand this out? I know you're using yourself as an example, but this kind of thing is happening to everybody, right? It's happening to men and women, both, where there's a wound, something happens, they make it mean, they build a whole thing around it.
Absolutely. Most of us, Mike, in my experience, I frankly haven't met anybody who hasn't had this experience, but I can't speak for everybody on the planet. But certainly all the men who have come to the Mankind Project and all the men and women who have come to other organizations that I work with carry around with them messages about themselves. I call them lies about themselves, that they aren't good enough, they aren't smart enough, they don't have the right to accomplish, they're not brilliant, they're not beautiful, they're defective, they don't look good enough, they're not smart enough, and so on and so forth. The messages go on and on. In fact, in my book, I have 2 full pages that list those messages, and that's just probably 5% of the messages I've heard that people who I've worked with, find out about themselves. Those come out of the woundings that happen, the things that the adults in our lives do, and frankly, the culture itself. A lot of these wounds are cultural. They come out of unspoken expectations of what it means to be a man, for example, or what it means to be a woman, that confines us and puts us into straitjackets, so to speak. Right.
And I want to ask you to speak to something specific, Rick, because I think for our listeners, whether there's women that are listening to this as well, and I think this applies to all human beings. I think sometimes when people hear wounds, maybe they think some huge traumatic thing that happened in their life, and and I get that was a traumatic thing, that your dad was leaving, but for some people, if you could just speak to it, doesn't necessarily have to be something hugely dramatic. Like for me, when I was younger, my dad would be reading the newspaper. He was reading the newspaper, and that had an impact on me where I felt like my dad doesn't love me, or he doesn't see me. Like that's what I was saying to myself. So it wasn't like it wasn't some traumatic shift or change. It was just it could be something that doesn't, from the outside world, it doesn't necessarily look like a really huge or traumatic thing, but it could be small, but the impact on the individual is big from what they make up about it. Can you speak to that?
Absolutely, Mike. You're absolutely right. I mean, some wounds are very obvious traumas, breakup of families, alcoholism or drug abuse in the family, abuse and things like that. But it's surprising the number of people that carry wounds and messages that are very, very subtle. They didn't come from trauma. They didn't come from getting beaten. They didn't come from things like that. They came from these subtle messages. For example, I've seen this happen a lot in our society. Many, many men come to our men's trainings with this kind of wound, and it has to do with boys being acculturated to being tough and strong and not feeling their feelings. So how this happens, for example, is a little boy falls down and skins his knee, and instead of his father grabbing him and holding him in his arms and says, "Yes, that hurts. I see that you're in pain. You're going to be okay. I'm with you." Instead, the father says, "Oh, you're okay. That doesn't hurt. Tough it up." Right. So many men begin to doubt their own feelings, their own sense of what's happening to them. Well, wait a minute, Dad. That does hurt, but you're telling me it doesn't hurt. Therefore, maybe I shouldn't feel pain. Now, if we hear that message over and over again, it becomes sort of an unconscious loop that plays over and over and over again in our minds. It becomes a message that we as a man aren't allowed to feel our pain. We aren't allowed to express our pain, and certainly we don't expect anybody to support us through that pain. That's just one example. What my dad did wasn't traumatic, and leaving was in a sense, and he tried to mollify it as much as possible with his loving comments. I know he loved me. I had no doubt about that. And yet it had profound effects on my life. as it does on many other men and women, these kinds of messages.
I got that. Thank you for elaborating on that. And so, I think we pretty much got the idea of, what wounds are and where they come from. These are the blocks. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to really get into the nitty-gritty of your book. And I know you go over this in your book. And, in your book you talk about the 7 steps that are used to reclaim your passion, your purpose, that you share about in your book, and which I imagine, is an answer to this. It's a way to work with this. Can you tell us a little bit about that and give us some of the good stuff? Not that the other stuff's bad.
Well, thanks, Mike. Yeah, I'd be delighted to. And I want to make clear that these are 7 steps that work for me. These aren't the only 7 steps, of course, and you don't have to do all 7 to get the benefit. Many, many, many men and women that I know of are doing some or all of these steps already, but this might be a way to sort of shine up your personal growth resume and make some progress. So these aren't in any particular order, also from importance, according to importance or anything. The first step that I list is dedication to a daily practice. What I mean by that is establishing and dedicating yourself to a daily practice, which might include something like meditation or prayer, some kind of breath work, some kind of calming breath work. It might include something like saying your mission to yourself. It might include other things, affirmations, things of that nature, to start your day off on a positive, calm, centered note. I have found tremendous value in this. And I don't say that I do it every single day, but most days of my life, I try to start off with, it only takes 20 minutes, a half hour, and I find that investment in time absolutely unparalleled in value. Number 2 is participation in support groups. In my book, I share some stories about some of the gifts I've gotten from various types of support groups. For example, I've been on my integration group in the Mankind Project, the same integration group, for 23 years. Now, those men know me so well, so deeply, and love me and care for me in times when I've gone through terrible trauma, like when my father died or when I went through an awful divorce. Those men were there for me in ways that just are unbelievable. In addition, they see through my BS. They see the truth of me so clearly. And I've had this happen in other support groups, too. I've been in Al-Anon groups and quite a few other groups in my life. And it opens myself up to other people's view of who Rick Broniec really is. And I can't fool myself when I have people giving me the truth of what they see. So participation in support groups is the second step, really important. Third is seeking regular feedback. Again, that can come in the context of a support group, but it also can come from talking to trusted advisors. I have, for example, courts of support that I turn to for various things in my life. When I have conflict or issues or I'm unclear about decisions, I seek feedback from those courts, and of course I also get it from my support groups. The fourth one comes right out of MKP work, and that is working on what I call shadow mining. The term shadow, of course, comes from the Jungian concept of the parts of myself that I hide, repress, and deny. The parts that I can't see. And what's particularly important about support groups, again, is that men and women in my groups can see things about me that I may not be able to see about myself, or that I'm not willing to acknowledge about myself. But the shadow mining is the commitment to continuously, sort of assiduously dig deeper and deeper into my own soul, looking for those parts of myself that have been diminished, lopped off, or lost through the messages and wounds of my life. For example, many of us have lost pieces of our sexuality. That's one of the things that's most deeply shamed by parents, by churches, and so forth. And so we question our capacity to be sexual or to be sexual in the way that is natural, normal, and healthy for us. And as a result, we lose access to that. By working on my sexual shadows, in terms of my support groups, in terms of other work that I've done, I've been able to reclaim a big part of my wounded sexuality. And it's really, really enlivened my life and increased my passion between myself and my spiritual partner. And shadow mining, of course, is also useful for lots of other parts of myself. I mean, I have reclaimed so many parts of myself I didn't even know existed. Both golden, beautiful pieces of myself, and frankly, some dark pieces of myself as well. The capacity that I have to do harm, to be hurtful to people, and things of that nature. Shadow mining is a continuous process of digging into my psyche and my soul and pulling those parts out and then owning them, making friends with them, making them part of my life. The next piece, number 5, is gaining multicultural awareness. That's the step that probably is most unusual for most people. A lot of people don't realize that that's an important part of reclaiming passion and purpose, and it certainly is for me. I've done a great deal of work around recognizing the places in my life where I'm highly privileged. As a white, middle-class male, I have enormous amounts of privilege in the United States and around the world that I was completely blind to before I started doing this work. More importantly, I notice differences in other people, and when I become more comfortable in noticing those differences and talking about those differences, I find myself more comfortable reaching out to people that are different from me and making liaisons, alliances, connections, and supporting people that may need that, both in MKP and, of course, around the world and other organizations as well. It also broadens my cultural realm, enlarges my influence and my worldview, and it's a part of my mission, so it puts my mission on a world stage in some ways. So I find multicultural awareness really, really valuable. In fact, I consider my intro into multicultural awareness as another initiation in my life. I've had several of those that I talk about in my book, not just one. My 6th step is living in accountability and integrity. A lot of this work comes out of stuff I've done before MKP, but also, of course, greatly influenced by and deepened by my work within the Mankind Project. I practice fierce and loving accountability in my life. I'm dedicated to practicing accountability processes regularly. I do this in my group. I do this with my family. I do it with my daughters, and I do it with my partner, and with friends on a regular basis. Now, the integrity part is about living in authentic alignment. So my words and my feelings and my heart and my mind are all aligned. And when I'm in integrity, people tend to trust me, believe in me, and it feels really good, particularly when I'm in integrity around things like my mission. So that's another important step I have found for reclaiming parts of myself, my passion, and so forth. And the 7th and last step, you already mentioned, Mike, and that is living my mission of service. Perhaps that's the most important step of all for me. I choose to live my life as much as possible in alignment with my mission. And my mission isn't just a statement I dust off, when I staff a new warrior training adventure or when I do a leadership training or when I'm in iGroup. It's something I say to myself each and every day. And I try to make decisions in my life, almost every decision, in alignment with my mission. And I find when I do that, I have a lot more passion, a lot more joy, a lot more connection in my life, and I feel enervated and enriched by experiences instead of feeling depleted and drained. So I make decisions based on alignment with my mission. I can ask myself, doing that particular opportunity, does that bring me an opportunity to create a more passionately loving planet? Does it give me a chance to form safe, sacred, diverse healing circles? If it does, most likely I can say yes enthusiastically to that opportunity. And if not, I can say thanks, but no thanks. So those are the 7 steps that I employ. Mike, again, they aren't the only 7 steps. They just work for me. And I believe they work for a lot of people that I coach and mentor. So that was a lot of talking, man. What's your name?
No, that was good. That was
Sorry
great.
about that.
That was good. No, that's
why I was on the
you.
pulpit there.
No, you were on the pulpit, and that's a good thing. That's where we want you to be right now, man. So we needed to hear that. So thanks for telling us that. That was some juicy stuff.
Good.
Awesome. And so, is there anything else there that we have a few minutes left here, Rick. Is there anything else that you want to say, or you want to express around your book, or maybe there's an important point you want to leave our listeners with around your book, or your purpose, your mission, or anything that you'd like to say?
Wow, well, that's a big question, Mike.
That is a big question. That is a big question.
Yeah, there's lots of things I'd love to say, and I realize we have a limited time. So here's what I want to say. First of all, I believe, as I said before, that every one of us has a birthright of passion and joy and connection and purpose. I believe little children are born into the world with that naturally and normally, and if they can reclaim that, if we can reclaim that, if I can reclaim that, I find a much juicier, alive life. And that's what I'm after. That's what I want for the people that I coach, for the trainings that I lead. That's why I'm dedicated my life to doing transformational work, helping move people from an older way of being, old messages, to a new way of being in which they find this greater sense of aliveness and passion and purpose. And you don't have to do it all at once. It's incremental. I've been at this for a long time. I continue to have ahas. I continue to awaken to even deeper and more loving and more alive parts of myself. And I urge any listeners here just to get started. Do something. Take one step, whatever it is for you. Take a step and implement it in your life, and notice what happens. Notice the incremental changes, the growth, the energy, the joy that you attract to yourself as you do it. And if it works, great. Try something else. And, seek that help. Get a coach, get a support circle, do a training, read a book. There's so many resources out there today. Look out on the internet. None of us has to be alone, and all of us can find support. Mike,
awesome.
Thank you.
And I think that's a perfect point for us to bring this to a close to right now. And I'm glad you brought up getting a coach and a book, because I think a great thing, people could get you as a coach, or they could get your book. And if you could share with us and let us know how we get a hold of you, whether we want to coach with you or whether we want to get your book. If you can just tell us where we can get all that stuff, all that good stuff at.
Oh, great, Mike. I appreciate that opportunity. Yes, I have a website. It's www.transformationaladventures.org. Or you can contact me at Broniec, that's RBRONIEC, at mankindproject.org. That's my email. My book is available on my website. It's available through the MKP website. You can also get it on Amazon, or if you're one of those electronic guys or gals, you can get it on Kindle. So if you just put my name in the search engine, or the name of the book in the search engine, it'll come up for you, and I would very much like to work with you. Have you read my book. There's other services that I provide that are listed on my website, or you can email me. Let's get together and let's talk.
Awesome.
Thanks.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Rick, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on the show today, and for all the work that you've been doing over, so many years. This work is close to my heart personally, and I know it's close to yours, the work we do with the Mankind Project. And it's been a blessing and an honor to have you here and to talk with you about your book and, your life and your passion. So thank you for being here, and let's do it again soon, brother.
Mike, thanks so much. I do this work for my 3 daughters and my 3 granddaughters, so this world is a better place for them. And I very much appreciate and bless and honor the work you're doing as well, my friend.
Thank you so much. Good talking to you.